Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Chapter 43.
Lu Su and Zhuge Liang have just arrived in Chaiseng County. They've left Liu Bei and Lu Qi behind for now, and they're stepping directly into the heart of Sun Quan's court, where the air is already thick with tension.
Oh, absolutely. And Lu Su, he's always the pragmatist, right? He's deeply aware of the court's anxieties. So he immediately advises Zhuge Liang, basically, look, don't reveal the true strength of Cao Cao's forces to Sun Quan just yet. He knows it would just pour fuel on the fire for the surrender faction.
Right. And Zhuge Liang, with that kind of famous, quiet confidence, he just laughs it off, says he knows exactly how to handle it. Meanwhile, Sun Quan is already deep in this heated discussion with his own officials, civil and military. He's just received Cao Cao's ultimatum.
Yeah, and this official dispatch from Cao Cao, it's quite a piece of work. Cao Cao states he's acting under imperial command, to punish wrongdoers. Very official sounding. He proudly boasts about Liu Tong just immediately surrendering Jingxiang, which is this critical strategic point. That surrender now gives Cao Cao direct access to the Yangtze River, a substantial navy. It completely changes the defensive game for Wu. He claims the people there just submitted immediately upon seeing his forces, which, well, maybe. Then comes the real punch. He says he commands 1 million heroic soldiers and 1,000 top generals. Probably an exaggeration, but still. He proposes a joint hunt at Geneseo to conquer Liu Bei, divide his territory, establish a lasting alliance with Sun Quan, and he demands an immediate reply. No wavering allowed.
It's a bold declaration, clearly designed to utterly intimidate. And it certainly had an effect, at least on some of Sun Quan's advisors. Zhang Zhao, who is a leading strategist in Wu, a highly respected figure, he immediately jumped on the surrender bandwagon. He argued that with Cao Cao commanding, supposedly, millions and acting under the emperor's name, resisting him would be disobedient and, frankly, futile.
Yeah, Zhang Zhao's core argument was, undeniably strategic, quite rational on the surface. He pointed out the obvious. The Yangtze River was Wu's primary defense. But now that Cao Cao had taken Jingzhou, he effectively shared control of the river. And this, Zhang Zhao argued, meant they just couldn't possibly resist. For him, surrendering was the 10,000 safe plans, essentially the ultimate play-it-safe strategy. Prioritize immediate stability over resistance. He believed it was the only way to ensure the peace of the people of East Wu and, crucially, preserve the 6 commanderies of Jiangyan. And a lot of the other advisors wholeheartedly agreed, saying it was in line with heaven's will.
You can see why Sun Quan was troubled by this, the immense weight of that decision pressing down on him. The text says he sat in troubled silence, deeply lost in thought. The implications of Zhang Zhao's counsel clearly unsettling him. But here's where Lu Su, who had just returned, makes his move. When Sun Quan gets up to change, Lu Su follows him. And Sun Quan, knowing Lu Su's intent, takes his hand and asks him directly, "What are your thoughts?"
This private conversation is absolutely crucial. It changes everything. Lu Su tells Sun Quan straight up, all the others, they were deeply misleading you. He says, they can all surrender to Cao Cao, but only you, General, cannot.
Which must have caught Sun Quan's attention. Why him specifically?
Lu Su then explains, look, if he, Lu Su, surrendered, he'd probably just return to his hometown, maybe still hold a position as a governor or magistrate under Cao Cao. It's manageable. But for Sun Quan, surrendering would mean being reduced to a mere marquis. 1 carriage, 1 horse, a handful of attendants. He'd lose his status as a ruler, everything he had built. Gone.
And that perfectly illustrates one of our core insights today, doesn't it? How understanding and addressing the individual, the personal motivations and stakes of key decision makers can be far more powerful than any broad strategic argument. Lu Su just cuts through all the political talk. He appeals directly to Sun Quan's ambition, his very identity as a ruler. He makes it crystal clear that the other advisors are speaking mostly for their own self-preservation, not for Sun Quan's actual interests.
And it resonates.
Yeah.
Deeply. Sun Quan sighs, saying the others' arguments had greatly disappointed him. And that Lu Su's counsel, it aligns perfectly with his own thinking. He even exclaims, heaven has given me Yu Zijing, using Lu Su's courtesy name. That's a clear sign of deep trust and alignment. His only remaining doubt, though, is Cao Cao's sheer size, especially having just absorbed Yuan Shao's massive forces from the north and now gaining Jingzhou. That's a lot of power. And this is when Lu Su reveals that Zhuge Liang, the sleeping dragon, is right there and can provide the true facts.
The setup for the big meeting. Sun Quan, clearly intrigued, agrees to meet Zhuge Liang the next day, but not before having his East Wu elites meet him first. These are the powerful officials, civil and military, who hold significant sway, and many of them, as we know, are leaning towards surrender. This meeting sets the stage for that legendary intellectual showdown. Lu Su again warns Zhuge Liang, look, When you see my lord, you absolutely must not say that Cao Cao's forces are numerous.
And again, Zhuge Liang just smiles, says he'll adapt to the situation. Classic Zhuge Liang.
What follows is just a masterclass in rhetorical combat. It really is. When Zhuge Liang enters, he finds over 20 civil and military officials, all formally dressed, seated, waiting for him. Zhang Zhao, seeing Zhuge Liang's, impressive demeanor, assumes he's there to argue for resistance and immediately launches an attack. Yeah, Zhang Zhao throws the first punch. He brings up how Zhuge Liang famously compared himself to Guanzong and Yu Yi, these historical giant of strategy and military success in Chinese history, huge names. Then he immediately pivots to Liu Bei's recent defeats, abandoning Xinye, fleeing Fancheng, losing badly at Dongyang, barely escaping to Xiaku. Ouch. He sarcastically asks what Zhuge Liang's brilliant plan was through all that, implying, basically, that Liu Bei was actually worse off after Zhuge Liang joined him. It's a direct assault on Zhuge Liang's reputation, his competence. Everything.
Exactly. And Zhuge Liang, he recognizes Zhang Zhao instantly as Sun Quan's chief advisor, the leader of this surrender faction. He knows he has to defeat him first, rhetorically speaking. So he replies, comparing Liu Bei's situation to a gravely ill patient. First, you need gentle care, broth, mild medicine before you can administer the stronger stuff. He clarifies that Liu Bei had very few troops, very few generals, when he, Zhuge Liang, joined him. And Xinye, it was a tiny, poor county, not a real base of operations.
He then pivots, reminding Zhang Zhao that despite their weakness, they still achieve significant victories, like burning Cao Cao's encampments at Bawang, flooding his forces at Baihe, actions that genuinely startled Cao Cao's generals. He even suggests that maybe Guanzong and Yu Yi might not have done any better given the circumstances. Bold claim. But here's where it gets really interesting, and where we see that second key insight really come alive.
Yes, exactly. Zhuge Liang then reframes Liu Bei's perceived defeats. They weren't failures, he argues. They were acts of great benevolence, profound virtue. He explains that Liu Bei was genuinely unaware of Liu Cong's surrender and refused, on principle, to seize a kinsman's territory. It wasn't weakness, it was honor. And at Dangyang, he recounts how Liu Bei refused point-blank to abandon the tens of thousands of ordinary people following him. He chose to suffer defeat with them, rather than race ahead to save himself by taking Jiangling. He turns what Zhang Zhao painted as weakness, as incompetence, into evidence of Liu Bei's unparalleled humanity and virtue.
That's such a powerful reframing, turning what looked like military weakness into, well, strength of character, and even strategic patience. He then brings up historical precedent. Reminds Zhang Zhao that Emperor Gaozu Libang, the founder of the Han dynasty, lost many battles to Shengyu. Many. But he ultimately succeeded at Gaixia thanks to Han Xin's strategy. He points out that even the great Han Xin didn't win every single battle, emphasizing that a few losses don't negate a larger, ultimately successful strategy.
And then comes this truly powerful, almost definitive statement. Zhuge Liang concludes by saying that major national strategy, the safety of the entire empire, requires true leadership, real vision, not, as he puts it, boastful debaters who are good at talking, but utterly useless when it comes to actual strategic planning or adapting to unforeseen circumstances. He calls such people, quite bluntly, a laughingstock of the world.
Wow. And with that, Zhang Zhao, the leading voice for surrender, the guy who started the whole attack, was left utterly speechless. The next scholar, named Yu Fen, and he goes straight for what looks like the obvious weakness. He basically asks, how can Liu Bei's, quote, few thousand righteous troops possibly hope to stand against Cao Cao's million violent masses?
Right. A direct hit on the numbers, the apparent vulnerability.
Exactly.
So how does Kongming handle that? I mean, does he try to argue the numbers or does he pivot?
He pivots hard. This is where you see his genius. Instead of getting bogged down defending Liu Bei's small army, he completely flips the script. He frames Liu Bei's retreat to Xiaku not as weakness, but as strategy. He says Liu Bei is waiting for the opportune moment. But then, crucially, he immediately turns it back on them. He subtly shames Eastern Wu. He points out that they have, quote, elite troops and ample provisions, plus the huge advantage of the Yangtze River as a natural barrier.
Right.
So Kongming implies if you, with all these advantages, are still talking about surrender, then it's you who really fear Cao Cao, not Liu Bei.
Wow. So he deflects the attack by making them look weak or fearful.
Exactly. It's a classic move, turn the accusation back on the accuser, put them on the defensive immediately.
Okay, that's a strong opening counter. What happens next? Does someone else jump in with a different line of attack?
Oh yeah, they keep coming. The next scholar is Buji, and he tries a different tactic. He tries to diminish Kongming by comparing him to these ancient persuaders, Su Qin and Zhang Yi.
Okay, who are they?
There are famous figures known for their persuasive abilities, but sometimes seen as, well, just clever talkers, maybe manipulating rulers for their own ends. So Bougie is basically saying, you're just like them. All talk, no substance, just manipulative rhetoric.
Ah, so trying to paint him as a sophist, a smooth talker. How does Kongming counter that without sounding defensive or, well, proving their point?
He does this brilliant reframing. He doesn't reject the comparison entirely. Instead, he acknowledges Suqin and Zhang Yi, but recasts them not as mere debaters, but as heroes who actually served their nations effectively.
Okay, so he elevates their status.
Exactly. He takes the insult and turns it into a compliment, almost. Then he sharpens his attack on Bougie and the others. He says they're the ones who hear Cao Cao's empty, deceitful words and immediately fear and beg for surrender. And yet, he says, they dare to laugh at true heroes.
Ooh. So he uses their own historical comparison against them, associating himself with heroism and painting them as cowards.
Precisely. He reclaims the narrative around those historical figures and uses their legacy to shame his opponent. It's quite masterful.
The pressure just keeps mounting. Who's next? What's the next challenge?
Next up is Xuzong. And he brings out a really heavy argument, especially in that cultural context, the mandate of heaven.
Ah, the idea that heaven chooses the rightful ruler.
Exactly. Xuzong argues that the Han dynasty's time is clearly over. Cao Cao already controls 2/3 of the empire, he says, and has won the people's hearts. So Liu Bei is basically fighting fate. He's not recognizing the will of heaven, trying to, quote, strike a rock with an egg.
That's a fundamental challenge.
Yeah.
How does Kongming even begin to counter an argument about destiny or heaven's will?
This is where Kongming gets really fierce. His response is sharp, almost startlingly personal. He calls Xuzong fatherless and kingless for saying such things.
Whoa, that sounds harsh.
It's an incredibly grave insult in that society. It questions his fundamental loyalties. Then Kongming shifts the whole debate onto moral and ethical ground. He talks about loyalty and filial piety, that deep respect for parents, elders, and your ruler as the absolute foundation of life.
Right, core Confucian values.
Absolutely. He argues that as an official of the Han Dynasty, Xuzong's duty is to oppose disloyalty, to vow to kill any disloyal person. He accuses Cao Cao, who actually benefited greatly from the Han emperors, of usurping power. He labels Cao Cao a traitor, someone universally resented.
So he's painting Cao Cao not as fulfilling heaven's will, but as defying fundamental morality.
Exactly. And then he dismisses Xuzong entirely, saying he's unworthy of speaking with. It's a powerful move, escalating beyond mere strategy into the realm of right and wrong, loyalty and treason.
That is a serious escalation. Does that shut them down, or do they keep pushing back?
Oh, they're not done yet. Another official, Lu Ji, steps up, and this time it's a more personal attack. Kind of a low blow, really. It's a lineage slur.
Uh-oh. What does he say?
He points out that Cao Cao is descended from a famous Han Prime Minister, Cao Can, but Liu Ji, claims his imperial lineage is unverifiable, and then he brings up Liu Bei's background, calling him just a straw mat weaver, essentially saying he's a nobody, he's not worthy.
Attacking his humble origins. That seems like a nasty ad hominem attack. How does Kongming deal with that?
Kongming's response here is fantastic. It's multi-layered. First, he flips the lineage argument right back onto Cao Cao. He says, okay, if Cao Cao is descended from a loyal Han minister, then his current actions make him a rebel against the emperor he should serve, and even worse, a traitor to his own ancestors.
Ouch. Using their own argument against them.
Precisely. Second, he firmly states that Liu Bei's imperial lineage is verifiable through official records, dispels that doubt. But third, and this is maybe the most brilliant part, he defends humble origins.
Oh.
He reminds Lu Ji and everyone in the room about Emperor Gaozu, Liu Bang, the guy who founded the Han Dynasty they all claim to respect.
Right, he started out very low level.
Exactly. Kongming says he started as a mere village head, but he still ended up with the empire. So who cares about humble beginnings if you have greatness in you? He then dismisses Lu Ji's entire perspective as childish thinking, totally unfit for a high-minded scholar.
So he doesn't just defend Liu Bei, he actually champions merit over birthright. That's powerful.
Yeah, he makes it about something bigger, something potentially relatable even to people in that room who maybe didn't come from the highest nobility. It shifts the values being discussed.
Okay, so he's dismantled arguments about numbers, rhetoric, destiny, and lineage. What could possibly be left? Who challenges him next?
Next is Yan Jun. And he goes back to the "you're just a talker" angle, but with an academic twist. He accuses Kongming directly of sophistry, clever but misleading arguments. And then he challenges him, "Okay, Mr. Smart Guy, what classical texts have you actually studied?" Implying he lacks real deep learning.
Ah, the show us your credentials attack, challenging his intellectual depth.
Right, and this leads to a really interesting point about what knowledge even means. Kongming's reply is basically a powerful dismissal of purely academic, rote learning if it's disconnected from reality.
What does he say?
He scoffs at just focusing on word-for-word interpretation of old texts. He calls scholars who only do that rotten scholars, people who cannot build a nation or achieve great things. Ouch.
Strong words.
Very. And then he backs it up with examples. He lists figures like Yi Yin, Zhang Zhe, Zhang Liang, Chen Ping, Deng Yu, Geng Yan, all these legendary figures known for their incredible real-world achievements for aiding and restoring the universe, as he puts it.
Right. Famous strategists and advisors.
Exactly. And Kongming points out nobody really knows or cares what specific classical texts they mastered. Their greatness wasn't in quoting books. It was in their practical wisdom and their ability to act. He's basically saying your kind of nitpicking scholarship is useless without the wisdom to apply it.
So he's criticizing their whole definition of learning,
Yeah.
challenging the very basis of their status as scholars.
Precisely. He's arguing for practical application, for wisdom in action over just theoretical knowledge.
He's really tearing down their arguments one by one, even questioning their entire intellectual framework. Is there anyone left? Is there a final attempt to undermine him?
There is one last challenger, Cheng Dexu, and he makes a final accusation, probably thinking it's the ultimate put-down. He accuses Kongming of engaging in big talk but having no real learning, kind of summing up the previous points.
So you talk a good game, but you're empty inside. How does Kongming wrap this up? What's his final word in this intense debate?
Kongming delivers a final, really sharp distinction. It's devastating. He differentiates between two types of scholars. First, the gentlemanly scholars.
Okay, what are they like?
He defines them as loyal, patriotic people who uphold righteousness, fight evil, actually benefit their generation, and leave a lasting, honorable name. People of substance and action.
And the other type?
The petty scholars. He describes them as people focused only on flowery writing, on ornate language. He gives the example of Yang Yong, a scholar who apparently wrote beautifully but ended up serving a usurper, Wang Mang, and died miserably. Kongming says these scholars have thousands of words on paper, but not a single strategy in their chest.
Wow.
And then he delivers the final blow. He asserts that such petty scholars are completely worthless.
And what was the reaction to that?
According to the source material, after this final cutting distinction, all the scholars were utterly ashamed. They lost color. They had absolutely nothing left to say. Silence.
You can almost hear a pin drop. Complete intellectual dominance.
Total. He systematically dismantled every argument and ended by questioning their very worth and contribution to society.
But just as it seems over, there's a bit of drama, right? An interruption.
Yes. Suddenly, Huang Gai walks in. He's a very important, respected military official in Eastern Wu, and he apparently heard the tail end of this. He praises Kongming, calls him a peerless talent, but then he scolds his own side, the scholars.
What does he say to them?
He basically tells them off for bickering and trying to trip Kongming up with words when Cao Cao's massive army is practically at their doorstep. He says they should be focused on how to repel the enemy. Then he turns to Kongming and asks why he wasted his golden words debating these guys instead of advising their lord, Sun Quan.
And what's Kongming's reply to Huang Gai? Does he apologize or explain?
His response is brief and quite telling, I think. He simply says that he had no choice. He had to answer because the scholars kept challenging him, and frankly, they were ignorant of current affairs.
Ah. So, a final little jab, reinforcing his earlier point about practical wisdom versus useless academic debate.
Exactly. He's basically saying, I had to educate them because they didn't understand the real situation. Liu Bei's hope, Zhu Giliang,
Hoping he can somehow convince Sun Quan, this really powerful leader in the South, to team up against Cao Cao.
the future hangs in the balance, really.
Okay, so Zhuge Liang arrives. He's got Huang Gai and Lu Su with him.
And straight away, you get this glimpse of his intense focus. He actually bumps into his own brother, Zhuge Jin, who's there in Jiangdong.
Oh, right. I remember this bit.
Yeah, and he essentially gives him the brush off. Politely, but firmly. The line is, ooh.
Which means,
Basically, official business isn't done yet. I can't deal with private stuff. Work before family sets the tone immediately.
Wow. Laser focus from the get-go.
And then you see Lu Su, who's kind of his guide and maybe a bit of an inside man here. He gives Zhuge Liang this subtle look like, remember the plan.
Ah, so there's already an understanding between them.
Seems like it. Zhuge Liang nods. He knows what he's there for.
Okay, so then he meets the man himself. Sun Quan. How's he described?
The source gives this really striking image. Zhu. Blue eyes, purple beard, just a really majestic, imposing figure.
Sounds impressive. And what's Zhuge Liang's first thought, his strategic read on Sun Quan?
This is fascinating. His immediate assessment is Zhuge Liang.
Okay, break that down.
It means, essentially, you can only provoke this guy. You can't just persuade him directly.
Interesting. So no straightforward arguments then?
Nope. Zhuge Liang instantly gets that Sun Quan, being this proud, powerful ruler, isn't going to be swayed by, logical pleas about danger or even mutual benefit.
So he needs a different approach.
Exactly. He figures he needs to bypass the rational brain and kind of poke the bear, go for the ego, stir up his fighting spirit.
Which sets up this incredibly audacious strategy he uses.
It really does. It's almost confrontational.
So let's get into phase one, the calculated provocation. Sun Quan starts the conversation, naturally enough, asking about Cao Cao. How strong is he, really?
And Zhuge Liang's answer is, well, it's pretty shocking at first. He starts by downplaying his own side, Liu Bei's forces.
How so?
He says they're a Shiite small army, few generals. Says their recent base, Xinye, was Alka, small city, no supplies. Basically painting Liu Bei as weak.
Okay. Not what you'd expect from someone trying to build an alliance.
Not at all. But then he flips it. He starts talking about Cao Cao, and he just massively inflates his numbers.
Right, this is where it gets wild.
He throws out over 1 million troops.
1 million?
Then he immediately corrects himself, as if doing the math in his head. No, wait, it's got to be at least 1.5 million.
1.5 million. Seriously?
Seriously, and he doesn't just say the number. He gives this detailed breakdown, like 200,000 from King Zhu, 500,000 or so from Yuan Shao's old army.
He's itemizing this imaginary horde.
Pretty much. Another few 100,000 new recruits, plus all the forces he just picked up from taking Jingzhou. It's an overwhelming picture.
And he doesn't stop there, does he? What about generals and strategists?
Oh, yeah. He adds that Cao Cao has, sure, jikliak, yeah,
Meaning?
thousands, not just 1 or 2,000 of brilliant strategists and battle-hardened generals, just utterly overwhelming strength.
Wow. Okay, and meanwhile, what's Lu Su doing? The guy who brought him there?
Lu Su is practically having a heart attack. The text says he's making these frantic, silent signals to Zhuge Liang, like, what are you doing?
But Zhuge Liang just ignores him.
Completely ignores him, stays focused on Sun Quan.
Okay, so this extreme exaggeration, it's not just showing off. What's the goal here? Why paint such a hopeless picture?
It's a psychological tactic, pure and simple. He's trying to strip away any complacency, any thought that maybe this isn't that serious.
By making it seem impossibly serious.
Exactly. He's basically forcing an emotional reaction. He's saying, look, if you're going to be purely logical about this, based on these numbers, surrender is the only option.
Which is designed to do what?
To see if Sun Quan is purely logical, or if he has that spark of defiance, that refusal to yield even against overwhelming odds. It's a test of his core character.
And then he pushes it even further. He actually advises Sun Quan to surrender.
He does. He says, look, if you can't resist, why not just submit? And then he twists the knife.
No.
He implies Sun Quan is just pretending to obey Cao Cao outwardly while secretly doubting,
Okay.
and warns him that this kind of indecision will lead to disaster super quickly.
He's basically calling him indecisive and maybe even cowardly to his face.
Pretty much a direct challenge.
So how does Sun Quan react? Predictably, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Predictable outrage. He fires back, well, if surrender is so smart, why hasn't your lord Liu Bei surrendered?
Good question.
And Zhuge Liang has the perfect comeback ready. He reminds Sun Quan that Liu Bei is royalty, a descendant of the Han emperors. He compares him to Tian Heng,
Who was?
a historical figure known for choosing death with honor over surrendering to a new dynasty. So, Zhuge Liang is saying Liu Bei would rather die than submit.
And the implication is?
The implication is, are you, Sun Quan, made of the same stuff? Or will you choose dishonor? It's an explicit challenge to Sun Quan's pride and reputation.
Man, the tension must have been incredible. How did Sun Quan take that?
Well, initially, the text says his face just changed color, like he turned pale with rage, and then he just got up and stormed off into a back room, left Zhuge Liang standing there.
And the rest of the court officials.
They apparently burst into mocking laughter. To everyone watching, it looked like Zhuge Liang had just spectacularly failed, insulted the ruler, got himself dismissed, game over.
Lucy must have been livid.
Absolutely. He immediately confronts Zhuge Liang, basically yelling at him, "How could you be so disrespectful?"
And Zhuge Liang's response. Is he worried at all?
Not in the slightest. He's totally cool, almost amused. He asks Lu Su, Dia something like, why is he so intolerant, can't handle a few words?
He's still playing the game.
Totally. And then he reveals his actual plan to Lu Su. He says, look, I do have a way to beat Cao Cao, but Sun Quan wasn't asking the right questions. I had to test his spirit first, see if he actually had the guts to fight.
So the provocation was entirely deliberate. A test.
Precisely. He even throws in this incredibly boastful line, something like, which means...
I see Cao Cao's million soldiers as just a swarm of ants. If I lift my hand, they'll all be crushed to dust.
Okay, that's some serious confidence. Or arrogance.
A healthy dose of both, maybe?
Yeah.
But it convinces Lu Su.
So Lu Su goes back to Sun Quan?
Right. Finds Sun Quan still fuming, probably pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
Lu Su explains what Zhuge Liang told him, that the insults were a test, that he does have a plan.
And Sun Quan. He has this moment of realization, an epiphany. The text says, hey, you samurai cupping spotty, what are you talking?
Meaning?
So Kongming did have a good plan all along, and he used those words to provoke me. My own narrow-mindedness just now almost ruined everything.
Wow. So he sees past the insult to the strategy behind it.
Exactly. He recognizes the purpose of the provocation, and that shift is absolutely critical. It opens the door for what comes next.
Which is phase 2, the path to alliance.
Right. Sun Quan invites Zhuge Liang back. They sort of reconcile, apologies are exchanged, things are smoothed over.
Okay, bygones be bygones.
And now Sun Quan confesses his real feelings. He says, look, I can't possibly submit to Cao Cao. He's destroyed everyone else. Submission isn't an option for me.
So the provocation worked. It solidified his resolve.
It seems so. He then asks Zhuge Liang, okay, Liu Bei just suffered this huge defeat. Can he actually still put up a fight? Is there anything left to ally with?
A fair question.
And now Zhuge Liang shifts gears completely. No more provocation, just clear strategic analysis.
He lays out the case for alliance.
Yes. First, he reassures Sun Quan about Liu Bei's remaining strength. He says Guan Yu still has 10,000 elite soldiers.
Okay, so that's something.
And Lu Qi, the governor of Jiangxia, also has about 10,000 loyal troops. So they're not completely wiped out. They have a core force.
Right, a base to build on.
Then, crucially, he starts dissecting Cao Cao's weaknesses, things that weren't obvious when he was just throwing around giant numbers.
The other side of the coin. What are they?
He points out Cao Cao's army they're exhausted from this long campaign, marching all the way south.
Especially those cavalry he mentioned earlier.
Exactly, the ones that supposedly rode 300 legs in a day. Zhuge Liang uses this great analogy. They're like, woo, an arrow at the end of its flight.
Can't even pierce thin silk. Meaning, they're spent. Their strength is superficial at this point.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else? He hits 2 more key points. 1, Cao Cao's troops are mostly northerners. They don't know how to fight on rivers and lakes, which is crucial in the south.
Huge disadvantage in Jiangdong.
Massive. And 2, the soldiers Cao Cao just acquired in Jingzhou. Their loyalty is Herner. They're only serving him because they were forced to, not out of genuine commitment.
So internal weaknesses too. Exhaustion, lack of naval skill, potentially unreliable troops.
Exactly. It paints a very different picture than the million-man invincible horde from before.
So Zhuge Liang has deconstructed the threat. What's the positive vision he offers?
This is where he lays out the grand strategy. He argues that if Zheng Dongwu and Liu Bei Shu, or Jing at this point, unite, they can defeat Cao Cao.
Push him back north.
And then you establish
The tripod formation.
The famous tripod. A balance of power between 3 states. Wu in the southeast, Shu in the southwest, and Wei, Cao Cao, in the north. It's basically the blueprint for the next 60 years of history.
That's a powerful, compelling vision, not just survival, but a stable future.
And it lands perfectly with Sun Quan. He's completely won over. He exclaims, "You?"
Your words have completely cleared my mind, like the fog has lifted.
Precisely. And right then and there, he gives the order, "Prepare for war. We're going to fight Cao Cao."
Decision made, alliance formed, victory assured.
Right. If only it were ever that simple in politics and war.
Okay, so what happens next? Phase 3.
Phase 3, the internal resistance. And maybe some unexpected wisdom?
The core politics kick in.
Immediately. No sooner has Sun Quan made his decision than there's this huge backlash, primarily from his civil officials, led by guys like Zhang Zhao and Gu Yong.
What's their argument?
They argue vehemently for surrender. They say, look, Cao Cao beat Yuanshao when Yuanshao was way stronger than we are now.
So fighting him is suicide.
Worse than suicide. They use the phrase now, carrying firewood to put out a fire, meaning resisting will only make the disaster worse, faster.
Ouch. That's a stark warning.
And they add another point, aimed directly at the proposed alliance. They warn Sun Quan that Liu Bei is just using them.
How so?
They say he's just borrowing Jiang Dong's army to defend himself, implying Liu Bei gets all the benefit and Wu takes all the risk.
That's a pretty pragmatic, maybe cynical, but understandable perspective from their side. It's about self-preservation for Jiang Dong.
Absolutely. It's a powerful counter-argument based on immediate risk assessment.
How does Lu Su react? He was pro-alliance.
Lu Su pushes back hard. He dismisses these officials as Yudin,
Ministers who only care about
saving their own skins and protecting their families, self-serving cowards, basically. He urges Sun Quan not to listen to them, to stick to the more honorable, courageous path.
So Sun Quan, having just made this firm decision, is now caught in the middle again.
Completely, pulled in opposite directions. On one side, the generals are probably eager for war, backed by Zhu Zhiliang's strategy and Lu Su's arguments. On the other, his most senior civil advisors are screaming, "Surrender."
What does he do?
He retreats again, back to his inner chambers. The text says he can't eat, can't sleep, he's genuinely torn. That initial resolve shaken by the internal opposition.
It really shows the weight on a leader, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even after a seemingly clear path emerges, the internal divisions can be paralyzing.
It's a classic leadership dilemma. How do you balance strategic vision with pragmatic risk assessment, especially when your advisors are deeply split?
So who breaks the deadlock this time? Is it Zhu Zhiliang again?
Nope. Not a strategist, not a general, not even Lu Su. The crucial intervention comes from family.
Really? Who?
His mother, or possibly aunt, the text uses, which can mean older sister, but context often implies the Dowager Lady Wu, his mother or senior female relative. Let's call her Wu Guotai for simplicity, as she's often known.
Okay, Wu Guotai, what does she do?
She sees him looking distressed, unable to eat or sleep, and asks him what's wrong. He must explain his dilemma. And then she reminds him of something specific.
What's that?
She reminds him of her sister's dying words, presumably Sun Quan's mother's dying words to him.
Invoking his mother's final counsel.
Exactly. And whatever those words were, the text doesn't tell us what they were. They have a profound effect on Sun Quan.
How so?
He has another epiphany. The description is, ew.
Like waking up from being drunk or realizing you were dreaming.
Yes. Total clarity hits him. Whatever those dying words were, they cut through all the arguments, all the fear, all the strategic calculations, and showed him the path.
And the source just ends there, on that cliffhanger.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It leaves you wondering what those words could possibly have been.